Hey everyone, it's Wednesday, November 11th, 2020. Welcome to episode 38 of the Ginger and the Beard podcast. I'm AJ, aka The Ginger.
And I'm Reese, aka The Beard. And on this week's show, we are joined by Jimmy Loughran, head brewer of Smartmouth Brewing in Norfolk and Virginia Beach, Virginia. Thank you for joining us, Jimmy. How's it going?
It's going very well. Thank you for asking.
Sweet.
Yeah, man, we're glad we can make this happen. I've been a big Smartmouth fan for a long time now, and we're excited to learn a little bit more about the brewery and also your background and how you got involved in the industry. So to get things started, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
So I'm local from Virginia Beach, moved here, lucky Navy kid, moved around a bunch, and then ended up back here. So the way I got into this was kind of weird. So I was a firefighter for the city of Newport News. I got really good advice, and it was to, if you have a second job, make sure it's something that you want to do and you're not making car payments on. So I luckily found another brewery locally, O'Connor. I went over, I offered to wash kegs, and then they let me wash kegs. And then I kept showing up, so they showed me how to make beer. Kept moving on, got an assistant brewing job at Gordon Biersch, best interview I ever had.
Nice.
I told Alan Young, my mentor, basically, if I get bored, I promise I'm going to leave because I don't like to be bored. So I kept moving along, and then Smartmouth hired me as a full-time brewer, and I kept moving on to be head brewer. So, yeah, that's
Nice.
my
That's
quick
awesome.
history. Yep.
Man, that's super cool. So I'm surprised to hear. I mean, were you a home brewer at all? Like, so you never even toyed around with that? Wow.
Never homebrewed, never did anything. I knew I liked drinking. I never knew homebrewing was a thing until I lived in California for a year, and then I found out people made beer, and I was like, that's weird. I assume they do that in factories. So even when I came back from the West Coast, I still didn't understand the process. I just knew I liked drinking beer.
So,
Yeah, I feel like that's probably where most people start. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, Reese and I, obviously, we're craft beer fans. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing the show right now. But he actually, for my 30th birthday, I turned 30 like in September, and he sent me a craft to brew beer kit. So, and then he also got one for himself. So we went through this like little experiment of brewing, just, the easy way, I guess, where there's literally a step-by-step instruction manual that shows you how to do everything.
Yeah.
It's
awesome.
It's like the Blue Apron of the brewing industry.
yes.
Perfect amounts of everything.
I've had plenty of people talk to me about those, and they're awesome just because you can really start to understand the process. I mean, usually you're starting with a malt extract, but honestly, like, it's taking out a few steps, but you can start building on those. So, I mean, they're awesome. It helps people.
Yeah. We kind of know the basics now, like you said. Now we want to find out more about malt and, putting together different grains and picking your hops, and trying to create your own flavor profiles, but we're just noobs.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we both popped open our first ones, and I think almost the same day we're like, that's not good. It's not that good. It's not what I was looking for.
Yeah.
But fortunately, like the instruction manual says, the handy dandy instruction manual is like, hey, if it tastes weird, put it back in the closet. Let it sit there for a little bit longer and see how it goes. And like, so we both did that. And like, hey, it actually helped. It tastes better than it did the first time.
Yeah.
So.
Like 7 weeks out.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Such a long process, such an investment. So
it is. Yeah.
So I do have a quick question. So when you started washing the kegs, did you kind of know at that point that was, where you were headed? You wanted to learn how to brew and you wanted to get to where you are now? Or was it just kind of like I like beer, let's go figure something out kind of deal?
It was the second part. So honestly, I was washing kegs and I thought the process was nice, but like, I honestly had a great job. I loved being a firefighter. And I kept doing it just because I wanted to keep learning. I mean, I'm just a creature of habit that way. If I get bored, I will find something else to learn. So ADD helps with that. No, I kept doing it that way. And then, I mean, the Gordon Biersch job, it really was just to like learn more and help somebody out that I didn't even know. And I thought it'd just be fun. So my wife is a huge fan of me doing new fun things, and she pushes me to do new stuff. So she's really the only reason I'm in this industry. So, because even when I went to Smartmouth, I was still a paramedic. And I was like, you know what? I'll try it for a year. And if I don't like it, like, I'll go back to being a firefighter. And then exactly like 1 year later, I had it in my phone and it clicked. And I was like, well, I guess I'm never going to be that again. So I just kept going with it. So
nice.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is a weird question. I've never actually thought about this. What is an interview process like for somebody that wants to get a job in brewing? Like, do you have to like bring samples of your work to show them? Like, when I go for an interview in marketing, I have to bring my portfolio, right?
Right.
I have to show you guys like all this cool stuff I can write about and design stuff that I've done in the past or whatever. Like, how do you land a head brewing job at a pretty like high, not, you know, pretty well-known established brewery?
So I was there. I was the second or third employee, like, that was getting paid. So it was the president and then the head brewer at the time, and then me, and then another guy got hired the next day after me to package. So I never had to, luckily, apply to be a head brewer. I went from brewer to lead brewer to head brewer year after year after year. So, but me interviewing for the brewing job the first time, it's really honestly everything I said right now. Like, I like making clean, good products, all that kind of stuff, but I didn't homebrew, so no. And the Smartmouth knew I was at Gordon Biersch. My mentor, at the tail end of my brewing there, I was making 50% of the beer, so, and he was trusting me to do it. I'd show up when he wasn't there and I'd mash in, or he was on vacation for a week and I had to rack beer over. So I knew the entire process. And then I've hired people after me. Being diligent and not being an asshole, those are two major qualities. So
yeah.
Being an asshole is really bad. Just like this is an industry, we don't get paid that much. Like, this is a passion thing. So if you're not passionate, like, it's just not going to work out for you. And assholes aren't usually passionate about like making good at things. So
nice.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like getting into brewing would be almost like you kind of have to come up in it, like an on-the-job sort of training situation, because everywhere you go, they're probably going to have different ways they like to do things, or it's not going to be, the exact same rinse and repeat process.
Not to mention like the barriers to entry, which is, having the tools that you would need. I mean, I'm sure having a company that already, owns, the equipment is better than trying to, buy it all yourself. I know certainly that was like kind of our barrier to entry until we found this craft beer thing. So, that certainly would help, I think, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of friends that I've known that have wanted to open breweries and stuff like that. And it's a huge amount of money to start a brewery, and especially to start a brewery correctly. So that's definitely a huge piece right there.
Yeah. So, so at Gordon Biersch, is that when you decided to kind of make this a career, like as you were learning the ropes there?
So at Gordon Biersch is when I realized how to make beer. Because prior I didn't. I realized that I really liked the process. I really liked making. I mean, the cool part at that point, I was at Gordon Biersch, and this is well before they were making IPAs. Like, it was a clean process. I was really like diving into a German way of brewing and making sure I understood like why we were doing things. And so at that point, I wouldn't even say that I knew it was going to be a career. I just realized probably I was there for 10 months. Probably 4 months in, I realized that I was pretty good at it. And that's like when I was just like, I keep doing this and I'll do this and do this. And then it just kept growing from there. So I'm telling you, like, the day that I was no longer a paramedic, I realized that's the day I was like, this is going to be my career. And it worked out for me, but yeah.
Nice. Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I just want to say I'm sad that Gordon Biersch is no longer here in Virginia Beach.
100%. Yes. I miss my friend Adam a lot.
That was such a shock. Like, it was just here one day and the next thing is like, oh, they're closed. What happened?
Yeah.
But so that's cool though that you got that experience. I loved some of the Gordon Biersch beers when I used to go to the place in Town Center. That's probably one of the first, exposures to, like, I guess microbrewing or craft brewing for me. It was just kind of cool that they had all that equipment there in that location, and really cool. But as you developed and learned how to brew, and now being where you're at with Smartmouth, is there anything like specific area of interest or certain ingredients that you're like most passionate about, like as you learn new techniques or discover new hops and things like that, or a particular beer style that you're most interested in like brewing the most? So
going back to having ADD, I really jump around a lot. and it kind of goes well with the way I like to make beer, and that's for everyone. So, my parents live here. My dad doesn't drink IPAs. My mom doesn't drink IPAs. So if I only made IPAs, which was probably 50% of the beer I make or drink, like they wouldn't come drink my beer. So I tried very hard, and I pride myself and the brewery on like making beers for everyone. So, our number one selling beer is Alter Ego Saison, but then Murphy's Law, Safety Dance Pilsner, make IPAs all the time, fruited gozes, barrel aged things. I mean, there's everything I try. I try to do genuinely, and that's probably the major key factor that I kind of like focus in on. So there's a lot of breweries that'll throw things in beer just for the fun of it. They won't like plan the whole thing out and realize what they're trying to do. And then they have problems, and they make bad beer, and they make exploding beer cans and stuff like that. And I'm not a fan of that lifestyle. So, I mean, I've done silly things, but if it makes me laugh and is genuine, then I'm definitely down for it. So,
yeah, it's awesome. I think we're actually going to touch on some of that stuff later on. We've got some stuff to talk to you about. But yeah, I mean, that's really cool, man. I like the brewing, making beer for everyone. And I guess we should go ahead and mention out too, the Beard and I both are drinking Smartmouth right now. I picked up from the Pilot House last weekend. I think it was last weekend. This is the Phobophobia Black IPA, which I don't know if I've actually ever heard of Black IPA before seeing this one. Number one, the can design is freaking amazing. So whoever designed this, like, make sure you keep them around. This is awesome.
Thank you.
And it tastes delicious. So I'm a huge IPA guy as well. Reese, on the other hand, is the Goza guy.
Stouts, malty beer, and Gozas.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and then Reese, what do you having, sir?
So I have the holiday helper here, which Jimmy just explained to us. Used to be kind of like a one-off, and now it's more seasonal. So cool to see this. It's 6.8% ABV, 70 IBUs. It's a Red India Pale Ale. Got a cool little festive logo on it. That's nice. I like the color of the can. Tastes good too. So yeah, you should try it.
Yeah,
if you haven't, listeners.
That one, which we were talking before the show. I had that one earlier today, also just by chance, and very malty. Like the malt, it's hoppy. It smells super malty, and then the hops is what stands out the most. Well, for me, when I had it earlier today, very good, delicious.
At 70 IBUs, it's like a little bit out of my normal range. Like I can usually handle up to like 20, and then it's like okay. But this is smooth. I can handle this. But I've also been trying to drink more IPAs, more ales. So I think I've been kind of like tempering myself for this. But I actually went out like 3 hours ago and picked this up and like got it in the fridge, got it cooled off just in time. So very happy that I have it now.
Clutch purchase.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. So starting out and working your way up into Smartmouth and things like that. How have your like interests, coming from just being a fan of craft beer, loving drinking craft beer, and now making craft beer, how has your style preferences changed? And does the brewing have like a direct impact on that? Like you say, you're a big IPA fan. Were you a big IPA fan before you started to brew? Or have you experienced new things and like come around to other flavors that before you weren't really interested in?
Oh yeah, I mean, my palate has definitely changed drastically. So, in college, I was drinking Natural Light. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's quite delicious. Tastes like water.
Yeah.
So it was when I went to California. I drank Fat Tire. I thought it was amazing. I still didn't know necessarily what I was drinking, but I mean, yeah, it's just continuously grown over time, and IPAs have grown over time as well. So like. Both beers you're drinking right now, the black IPA and a red IPA, those have been around for a while. There's tons of bitterness, and obviously, the hazy, juicy train has gone on. So I've definitely paid attention to new styles. I've definitely experimented with new styles and trying to make new things. We were just speaking of Gozas 2 seconds ago. Like, I make an Imperial Goza, which isn't really a thing, but I kind of wanted to, like, push it, and there was a reason I wanted to push it, and I wanted to try new things that way. It's really just that. I mean, I like to make traditional beers. I mean, Pilsner Helles, all those styles are great. But like when you start getting to the American side of things, and that's what Americans definitely brought to the brewing world, is like taking something, tweaking it a little bit of your own way, and trying to like keep pushing it different boundaries. So,
could you maybe expand on the Imperial Goza a little bit? Because I've never heard of that before.
Of course, yeah. So like a Goza, traditionally, you're at like the 5% range or something like that, and an Imperial Goza, it does not have like, or a Goza in general does not have all the fruit that we put in them. So it's really just usually coriander and salts, and then you kind of enjoy it. But the fruit thing has like definitely caught on. It's definitely not even a style that I drink, and I have no problem really saying that. But as I said, I like to make beer for everyone. So my brother-in-law, it's one of his favorite styles. So with that said, I made an Imperial Goza. The first one I made was Snorkosaurus, which is named after Dino from Flintstones. And I just wanted to make, I was like, cool, if I am to drink one of these, I'm definitely not drinking if it's 5%. So I forget what that one was. It was like 7.5%, which once again, it's not a real thing, but I just like, yeah, we're going to call it an Imperial Goza. So we have a file on our computer, or we have like a shared program that like I put all my beer styles in, and I'll randomly like put a beer style in, and they're just like, we can't find any information. I was like, I know it's not a real thing, but we're just going to keep doing it. So they've gotten used to that now, but there was a lot of times people would ask me lots of questions. So.
Well, they had to start somewhere, right? Goza just didn't pop up overnight. So an Imperial Goza, you're leading the way, right?
No, I'm sure someone else did it too. I mean, it's just my reason to do it, but yeah, it's fun. I mean, we're not curing cancer. We're making beer. So if it's not fun, like, we probably shouldn't do it. So
yeah, I think that's like one of the coolest things about, I mean, the longer we do this podcast, the more beers. I mean, we drink a different beer every single week. Most of the time it's one that we've never had before. So just getting to experience all these different breweries and different types of beers, and for myself, pushing my own, limits and preferences. Like it's weird because Reese and I kind of mirror each other, right? Like he doesn't like the bitter stuff. I'm all about the bitter stuff, but I try to, now that it's fall's coming around, I'm trying to push myself more into stouts and porters and things like that. And, he's always trying to get me into the sours, and which I did try more sours and gozas over the summer, while they're like in season, I guess. But, you see some weird stuff out there sometimes. Like I think Stone had a hazy coffee IPA.
Yep.
They collaborated with, I think it was Modern Times.
Yeah, it was like Gargoyles or something like that. I bought it. I drank it. It was good.
Yeah, it was good, but like I remember if you go back and watch that episode, like the first sip, I was just like, I don't even understand like what flavors in my mouth right now. Like I've had coffee porters, coffee stouts, like all this stuff, but like you put bitter hops with coffee, like it just blew my taste buds, like blew my mind for a second. I was like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to make of this, but as I continued to drink it, I was like, okay, I can get with this.
Well, and that's cool that so I mean, I remember that beer because I bought it to bring into the brewery because it was an interesting idea, but they were trying to play off the acidity, right? So the acidity of coffee, it was probably cold brewed, it wasn't really there, and it played off the sour aspects of the Goza, and that's what they were kind of trying to do. So yeah, I mean, and what I got really excited because you brought up like you push through it, and I think that's what a lot of people don't necessarily do. So like the first time you drink a sour, especially, it's going to coat your mouth and you're going to be freaked out because you're not used to it. And then most people are just like, yeah, that's not for me. And then I'm be like, take another sip. Like just now, your mouth's not used to it. And you're like, oh, yeah. I remember the first time I had a Guinness, like it was my 21st birthday. I was like, this is gross. And then by the end I was like, that was pretty delicious. It was milky. And then I had another one.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think one that I haven't been able to push through yet is the spicy beers, with the peppers and stuff. I was telling Reese the other day. Yeah, I was like, dude, I had, you're probably familiar with it, Tradition Brewing in Portsmouth. Mm-hmm. They have a ghost pepper lager. Mm-hmm. And I feel so bad saying this and admitting it. So on our show, we put up polls usually on Thursdays before our Friday episodes, and we asked people to vote on what they want either of us to drink for that episode. Mm-hmm. And just kind of an engagement thing. But yeah, so I put this ghost pepper lager up like for a few weeks in a row, and it never got selected, even though the Beard was always voting on it.
Every time I voted for it.
He's trying to light me up.
Yeah.
so eventually it's in my fridge, and one day I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and drink this thing. And I've had like, jalapeno, habanero stouts and stuff before, but this ghost pepper lager was like next level spicy. Like I took this first sip and just the burn all the way down. I was just like, I told my wife, I was like, I feel so bad doing this, but there's just literally, I can't drink this. I had to pour it out. I felt so bad, but pouring out a craft beer is something that doesn't come easy for me. But,
no, I get it. Yeah.
You got to have limits, right? So I don't think
exactly.
I could do it either. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jimmy, have you done a pepper lager or anything like that before?
No, not pepper lager. I've done a pepper stout. It was Reba Grande. It was with coffee and 3 different types of peppers. And to be honest, I mean, I had a 10 ounce. Every beer we ever make, obviously I sample several times and I'll have a 10 ounce sooner or later. But my tasting room manager, Clint, is a huge fan of it, fan of the style. So I actually brewed it a second time too. I think he took a case home to make sure he had it for a long time. But as I said, it's not for me, but I'd love to try it and experiment with it. So,
yeah.
So is there do you think there's like a subgroup out there that just really enjoys those? Did it do well?
Yeah, they're masochists.
Oh, got it. There it is. There it is.
Yeah, no, there's a huge, I mean, to be honest, like we get tons of messages about like beers we make and stuff like that. And that one, I mean, it's a very small group, but like, yeah, they get excited for it. So, and with a pepper, it's going to fit differently with different styles. For me, I would put it with a stout just because I want that maltiness and I want any sweetness, any chocolatey like flavor to go with it. So, but I mean, good job on Brian for putting in a lager. So,
nice. Is that brewer
yeah,
tradition?
That's head brewer. Sorry. Yes.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, again, I felt bad pouring that thing out, and hopefully, if he ever hears this, he's not offended. But that's the thing, man. It's just certain styles are for certain people, and I'm kind of like you. Same way with food. I'll try anything once, right? Mm-hmm. I've tried escargot. I've tried like all kinds of crazy foods. I'll try any beer most of the time, at least once. If it's not for me, it's not for me. But yeah, I think the stouts make a lot of sense with the sweetness and maltiness to kind of balance out that spice. But yeah. I'm not a big spicy food guy in general, so maybe people out there who are all about that, maybe that's for them.
I'm all about spicy food. I'm not about spicy beers.
All right, so we're kind of I don't know if we're being critical of beers, but I guess being a brewing professional, is it hard for you to drink a craft beer without being hypercritical about the flavor, maybe the technique, anything that goes along with that?
I would say it's like 50-50. I mean, it matters why I'm drinking the beer, right? So, I have no problem saying it. Everyone has a cheap beer that they drink, and if they say they don't, they're liars. So, I mean, my cheap beer to drink is my beer because it's free. But then outside that, I still have. I drink Coors Banquet, so like I'm not thinking about Coors Banquet when I drink Coors Banquet. Like I thought about that a long time ago. It drinks fine. So, but no, there's plenty of times that I'm sitting there. I was just in Baltimore this past weekend, and we went to 3 different breweries, and I definitely sat there and judged each brewery a touch each time. So, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna not drink it or not try another one of their beers, but I can definitely see faults in plenty of other people's beer. Just same as if another brewer drank mine, they'd find faults. I mean, it just kind of happens. So, a buddy of mine knocked Safety Dance Pilsner, and then it won Best Beer in the State. So, like, it's, it's totally fine. And he's an awesome guy, and I love it because when it won GABF, he texted me, and then I said the same exact comment that he said about it the first time, and it was just a laugh. Because, to be honest, my friends, I'd rather them say something bad about my beer, or honestly, some of my brewers, my lead brewer or any of them, if they say something bad about the beer we created, I'd like to hear those things, because then either one of two things. As a head brewer, I'm going to defend it. We made that decision for a reason. Or the other side is, you're absolutely right. We should, if we make this again, we need to tweak this. Or we're going to tweak, we're not making this beer again, but we're going to make something like this in 6 months, and let's tweak these aspects. So.
What are some examples of maybe what you're picking up on when you're drinking other beers that you would be critical of? And then along with that, if you got that type of critique from your internal team, what are some like slight changes that you would have to make to improve upon it? Could you give us some examples?
Yeah, so like internally last year we make summer fling. It's Hefeweizen, and then last year we made tropical fruit summer fling. So we added a bunch of fruit to it, and then it turned out fine. I mean, so like I grade our beer, the normal A, B, C, D, whatever. And I talked to Jared, my lead brewer, and I was like, if we did this again, what would you do? Because I already knew what I wanted. We talked about like the flavor development, and we realized like there was a nice sweetness there, but like we needed a tart aspect to it, and I think it would have like mellowed out that fruit that kind of was going a little bit haywire because of the bananas and then all the fruit that we added inside. So if we did that again, like that's what we would do. There's different ways to make your beer tart. Maybe blending in a goza. Those different things we played around with, and then from there, we're not making that beer again, at least not in 2021. But if we make something like that, we have already started a couple in-house experiments to like try to mix things around and see if we can improve it. So when I go to so when I go to another brewery, I mean, I can kind of tell. Maybe when we were in Baltimore, there was a place that had a hazy IPA. And I was drinking a quad that I wanted to try, but I bought my buddy a pint, and it came, and then I like looked at the bartender, and I looked at my buddy, and then I was like, cool, I'm glad they added, tons of crystal malts to this beer. Crystal malt is not supposed to be in a hazy, juicy IPA. Caramel malt it added, I mean, the beer was red, it was malty, it tasted more like an orange pithy kind of thing, but it wasn't great. And like, I mean, that's just an easy one, just to be able to see it and kind of know right away that that's not something you should be having. And I think a lot of people like to use buzzwords like hazy IPA or whatever. Yeah. But that's not what that was. They could have called it something else, and it probably would have been better. But it was just bad to
misleading. Yeah, misleading. Right.
Yeah. So that actually dovetails perfectly. This is what I was alluding to earlier. On your website it says you guys focus on flavor over flash, and so one thing that we've talked about a ton on this show is that breweries more than ever have to find ways to make themselves stand out on the shelves, using those buzzwords with flashy label designs, all kinds of crazy flavors. How do you guys stay true to that philosophy of not relying on gimmicks while still being one of the most popular breweries in the area? I mean, like I said, we got the hazy coffee IPAs and these pepper lagers and all these crazy like polarizing sort of flavors, these crazy smoothie beers and things like that. How do you stay true to that sort of philosophy while still remaining competitive?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, so internally, we make plenty of those styles, and it's all just for one-offs and fun stuff like that. I'm sure at some point we're going to talk about Saturday morning or whatever, and that's going to come up for the marshmallows. But I think the major thing for me is the majority of the beer I make, and a vast majority, are just clean, easy drinking beers of some variety. So experimenting and trying these things out is great, but it's more of like, what's your real core of what you're doing, and are you doing it for a reason? And I mean, that's really it. So we've had discussions internally about beers, and then I've just said no. Like, it's not my style, or it's not genuine. And I've shot down beers where like, yeah, but we can make money off this. And I'm like, are you excited for this beer? And they would say no. And I'm like, I'm not excited to make it. You're not excited to sell it. Just because we're making money off of it, let's find something else. And we'll find something else. We'll do it that way. So, and I think beer, it is whatever people are doing that is crazy, but I think that's just society right now too. So like, whoever's the loudest, everyone stares at. If you watch sports, I know you guys do, on ESPN, whoever's shouting the loudest, all of a sudden, Stephen A. Smith, you're like, oh, that guy has an opinion. It's like, yeah, but you're just loud. Like, it doesn't really mean anything. So, yeah.
Yeah, Stephen A. Smith holds a special place in MMA fan hearts right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, like I said, the flashy label designs, it's really about, I didn't even understand like this subculture of craft beers until like we started this podcast, but like following all these people on Instagram, people who review beers, breweries from across the country, beer website, all these different things. Like you see these ridiculous beers that like don't even make sense. And you're like, how is that a beer and not like a dessert?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like the thickest thing you've ever seen. It looks like a milkshake, legit. I mean, there's plenty of milkshake, IPAs and things that, have lactose and whatever. But, so I've always just wondered if like beer is becoming such a cultural item, it seems like, where it's almost like food. It's like, let me find the place that puts out the craziest looking biscuit that's like giant and I can take a picture of it and I can get 25 likes on Instagram. And beer is like almost the same way now. It's like, let me find the most ridiculously colored beer, like a blue beer that's got like legit whole blueberries in it, or like something silly, so that I can post it on Instagram and like get a bunch of likes, as opposed to like a quality, consistent, clean, traditional beer, so that's impressive.
Well, it's also, I mean, let's be honest, like, we all probably eat the same things all the time, but you even said you try new things, and that's like the whole point, right? So like, yeah, I really just drink IPAs and easy drinking lagers, but like, I'm going to try all those other fun things, same as you're trying escargot or anything of that variety. So, I mean, beer and food, they go hand in hand. So yes, right now it is who's the biggest and loudest, but like when I look at my beer sales at the end of the day or the end of the week, like it's always the easy drinking or the normal beers. Like, there'll be a small pop of something fun, but then really people are always going to go back to their traditional things. So
I find that I'm doing that more often now as well, where when I first started getting into this, it was always like, oh, I want to try something crazy and new. And now it's like I find myself kind of like settling with like a Hefeweizen more often than not, because it's kind of like just middle of the road. It's not a light beer. It's not something crazy, but it's got, usually they're, pretty good, middle of the road beers. So the more that we've been, talking about people involved with the industry, and you've been kind of talking about some of the ingredients that you use, and, certainly AJ and I have had a little bit of experience with some ingredients, or at least seeing those, the more we're kind of realizing that the quality of beer relies heavily on the ingredients used. So being in coastal Virginia, surrounded by salt water, is that a good location for water to brew with?
Yeah, I mean, the water that we use is the same water like you would get at taps, but I also filter it prior, right? So I'm trying to get rid of chlorine and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, back in the day, Coors being in the mountains, they had like clean water, and they were like, there was less things they had to do to it. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, Virginia Beach and Norfolk both have an amazing water because it's nothing. Like, there's no real flavor to it. It's not too hard. It's not too soft. There's nothing like that. So, as a brewer, I get to actually mess with the water. So if I want to make it a little bit softer, then I can. Or if I want to make it a little bit harder, I can. And I'll add brewing salts to them. So I really enjoy Hampton Roads water because initially when I got in, I didn't know anything about water, and I kept growing and growing. And then finally when I was like, all right, I'm going to start adding brewing salts. And then I like got our water report. I was like, this is like a perfect palette of or blank. Like I can do whatever I want with it. So, it's cool in that sense because I messed around with a couple of our core beers and didn't tell anyone outside the brew house that we were doing it. And I had a couple people being like, hey, Notch 9's tasting like juicier. And I was like, oh, really? And they're like, what'd you do different? I was like, nothing. Like, I just wanted to it was the perfect, like, great. Like, we know what we're doing and we're messing around with this properly. So, yeah.
So does having like a blank slate of like just baseline water kind of, I guess, impact it all the way to the end when you're sipping on it? Like,
yeah, definitely. So, I mean, there's times too, we were talking about like when we're tasting other brewers beer, like I'll taste if they over corrected or something like that with like brewing salts, especially on like hazy IPAs are trying to like get it to be softer, but you can get to a point where you add too much and you get like chalky kind of flavors to it.
Interesting.
So yeah, I mean, having it blank is by far the best. I've talked to other brewers in other parts of the country, and they're like, yeah, the amount that we have to do to either filter our water or we can't push the envelope the way we would like to because of it.
So do you ever use distilled water?
No.
Or is that's kind of a
no? Yeah,
no,
I mean,
go.
It's the water that comes in. I have a charcoal filter to clear a bunch of stuff out, and then I have another water filtration, and then we're good to go.
Got it. Okay.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, one of the earliest, another early experience of craft beers for me is Devil's Backbone. Like Vienna Lager was like my first entryway into like craft beer. And I'm from Rockbridge County, which is like Lexington, Virginia, Buena Vista.
Yep.
I'm from Buena Vista, technically, not technically, that's where I'm from. But anyways, yeah, they're in Lexington, where they have like the outpost, I think is what they call it, in Lexington, and the main breweries in Nelson County up in the mountains. And one of the coolest things that when I did the tour there was like they talk about using Rockbridge County water, and it's like, hey, if you are wherever in the country and you drink Vienna Lager, you're drinking Rockbridge County water. And like that just hit home for me. I was like, that's super cool, man. Like I can go here in Virginia Beach and go pick up some Devil's Backbone. I'm drinking water from like back home. That's super cool.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the grains or whatever. I don't know where they get their actual grains from, but they actually told us that they recycle their used grains for like farms in the area. Like it goes to feed, different animals or whatever. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Ours is just same. Ours goes to the pig farmer, Tommy, down in Chesapeake, to cows and pigs. I bought a quarter pig off of him once. It was nice.
Nice.
Awesome.
Tommy the pig farmer.
Yeah.
That's super cool, man.
We got to call Tommy up, do some barbecue soon.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, okay.
That sounds good.
That's exactly how it sounds. It's amazing. At the brewery, all we do. Okay, guy. Yeah, of course. I'll get there.
Oh, my God.
Legitimately, Tommy's amazing. If I call him and I need something, he'll get there. He'll be like, yeah, Jimmy, I got you, man. Don't worry about it.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I just want to give a quick shout out. I reached out. I don't know if you guys are, on this Facebook group. There's a Facebook group called Craft Beer Fans in Virginia, or Virginia Craft Beer Fans or something like that. So, prior to this conversation, I actually put a little thing out there and said, hey, we're interviewing a local brewery in Norfolk / Virginia Beach. What kind of questions would you guys, what things would you be interested to know about? So this came as a response to a lot of different people responding. Well, number one, we got a ton of comments on that. And one of the big themes there was COVID, of course, topical, relevant. So they're interested, in impacts of COVID, but not necessarily just like shutting down the tap rooms and things like that. But what impacts have there been, or have you guys seen on supplies and ingredients and things like that? Like, has COVID affected the people who are producing the hops, producing the malts? Have you had to change suppliers? Have you had to, I don't know. But has it had any kind of impact on the brewing side of the business?
The number one impact is aluminum cans, like hands down. Like it's not even close. So to address the other things like malt, no, like maybe a small hiccup or two just because of shipments, and like hops, no. Yeast I get from a provider in Virginia, so that's not an issue either. But cans is like a tremendous problem. So with COVID, so many more people were drinking in their homes. They weren't drinking out at bars anymore. So, we were using a bunch. Our package sales went up tremendously, as most people did for BA. We've seen through the BA. But right now, we're still having issues. Luckily, I have a lot of printed cans for 12 ounce. All my limiteds are in 16 ounce, and 16 ounce aren't really in a short supply, because the reason 12 ounce are in short supply is because of Pepsi and Coke. They're
oh wow, yeah, makes sense.
They're one of our providers. We try to reach out, and they're like, yeah, we're not taking new orders at this current time. Like that's just kind of the way it is. So, I'm part of a couple of things on Facebook, just like people borrowing 12 ounce cans like left and right, or trying to get 12 ounce cans left and right. So
to like recycle them, to reuse them?
Yeah, so like, or just like, I had a partial pallet, and I had it for a while, and one of my friends needed it out in Charlottesville, and I told him he could have it. This is like, a while ago. Brewers always help brewers. That's always going to be the case. If a brewer never helps another brewer, then like they just get shunned. They're not going to be part of us. They're not going to help us. So, anyways, we help each other out for that kind of stuff, but it got to a point where like, because maybe only needed a couple layers of it. It just, I can't help anybody else out with 12 ounce cans. I can help somebody out with 16 ounce cans because I have a little bit of stockpile, but not that much. It's more just to like make sure we can get through this kind of thing. So, yeah, it's scary, to be honest.
So is there like a tipping point where you would switch to bottles? Or is
No.
the cost just too
No,
much for that?
I have the machinery to do cans. So like in Hampton Roads, we were the first brewery to be canning. So like we've been canned since the day we could put beer on shelves. So to do a brewery or to do a can or bottle, I just don't have the machine. So there's another brewery I know that they're running too. They have canning and bottling, and they thought about switching over to canning more products, and then luckily for them, they can switch and be like, no, we're going to stick with bottles for, until this whole thing rolls over. So
got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is there anything that, you go to the store now and it's like, hey, there's a national coin shortage. So unless you want to donate to the cause and give us an extra 67 cents, then we can't accept your cash. Right.
Right.
Is there an equivalent to beer buying? Like if I, obviously I went to the brewery and bought this 16-ounce can. Reese went to Total Wine and got his, or somewhere, right? Total Wine.
Total Wine, yeah.
Got his smart. Like, can us as consumers do anything to like help the can shortage? Like, can you take these back to a brewery and like recycle these somehow? Or
no,
is that not a thing?
The one thing, there's like 300 million people that listen to this podcast. If everyone will stop,
approximately,
if everybody
on a bad day
stops drinking Coke and Pepsi for like a month, then maybe they won't make as many, and then like totally that would probably help a lot of breweries.
Okay, we'll try to get the word out.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
We got to start somewhere, right?
That's the idea for our first T-shirt from the Ginger and the Beard. It just says "Drink less." It's like the Chick-fil-A thing. Like drink more craft beer, less Pepsi.
Yes.
Yep.
Sponsored by the Ginger and the Beard.
Yep.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, man. Like I wish there was something that, because I'm sure like that's the one thing you mentioned. Like brewers help brewers. Like the one thing that Reese and I both agreed on is like being now like more ingrained in this like craft beer culture, and talking to people who are all about it. It's like, it's such an amazing community, man. Like people are so friendly. They're not assholes. Like we're in we like follow the MMA and UFC community, complete opposite.
Oh yeah.
People are just like, I don't know what it is.
Alpha,
Yeah, it's all alpha people. But on the craft beer spectrum, man, everybody seems to be super willing to help out, people love to support their local breweries, and it's unfortunate there's nothing that we could actually do to give back, besides continuing to be patrons, obviously. But
no, that's by far the best thing you can do. So
yeah,
and I mean, for us hitting tasting rooms, it's obviously huge. That's helping us. Buying beer from the tasting room is obviously great, and any fashion you can do it. So
yeah, and I mean, you guys sell. I know growlers are a big thing now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys do growler fills?
We do. The whole COVID thing has definitely changed it. But prior to that, we were doing growlers all the time.
Yeah, I've been having trouble getting a growler filled anywhere I've gone. Unless I buy it directly from them, they won't.
Yeah.
They won't fill mine. Which I understand. They don't want to, take somebody's that's been, been in their house and has germs all over it. Who knows?
Right.
Are you guys good? Are you guys doing tastings? Because I think that's another thing that I haven't seen yet.
Yeah, so for us, it still made sense to stick with plastic, which is an internal debate all the time. So that definitely eliminated a lot of things of like, we don't do flights right now. So it definitely has changed the way we've had to do things. So.
Let's get that thing cured. Let's get this going, man. I want some growlers. I want some flights.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, so a lot of breweries. This is another one that came up, interestingly enough, from the Facebook page, and I thought this was kind of interesting. So, a lot of breweries are putting out these specialty release small batch beers, and there's like this subculture of reselling beers. So I know like on the bourbon, I have a friend who's like all about bourbon, and like the bourbon resale market is like ridiculous. You can buy like a $40 bottle of bourbon and resell it for like $600. It might not be the exact same on the beer spectrum, but it is out there. It is happening. Some beers go for hundreds of dollars for like single beers. And you mentioned it earlier. You brought it up. You knew it was coming. You saw it a mile away. I wanted to talk about Saturday morning. So this was a huge thing in Hampton Roads. People were lined up around the buildings down the block to get their hands on some Saturday morning marshmallow IPA, which, Reese, if you hadn't seen this one, it was essentially a Lucky Charms, theme. You can't obviously say Lucky Charms, but that's what the theme was. It was
marshmallows and rainbows, pink balloons. Got it.
Chase the rainbows. So I'm curious, like, what was were you with Smartmouth when that was created? Were you the mastermind behind that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's everything from Smartmouth to team, but yeah, I've been there since, month 3, so I've been there the whole time. But yeah, it was kind of crazy. I didn't really think it was going to keep growing the way it did, but it kept being picked up by publications all over the place. So it was fun. We did a second year. It was fun. So, I mean, that beer got thrown around a couple times. I have no problem saying it. Like, I said it one year, and then I was told, Jimmy, that's a silly idea. And then I was like, okay. And then, which is really nice because I have silly ideas all the time. So I was just like, okay, let's do this other silly idea. And they're like, yeah, we'll do that one instead. I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm a child. As long as you say yes to me sooner or later, I'll totally be fine. So, but yeah, it was amazing to be part of. The resale market was crazy. To be honest, I had it in a personal level. Like I brought a 4-pack to a barbecue, and somebody was like, some person I didn't know. They're like, "Do you know what this is?" And they didn't know who I was. I was like, "Yeah, I know what that is." They're like, "Do you know how much this is worth?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know how much this is worth." And they're like, "Can I have one?" And I was like, "Sure, whatever." I don't. Like, but to be honest, like, I just thought it was funny, and I get to tell this story, and I just got to, like, I was part of that experience because by that point, all my friends already had one, and this lady who I grew to know, I was just like, yeah, sell it, see what ever happens. And she sold it for $100, and I was like, that's silly that you got something,
wow, and
then you sold it for $100. So the resale market's always going to happen. I mean, it's going to happen for everything in the world. So there's nothing we can really do to stop it. I've seen breweries try it. Russian River's tried it with Pliny, and it's still going to happen. So yeah, it's unfortunate because obviously the breweries would like to see that money, but if I charged $500 for something, people would be like, that's not going to happen. Of course. So, but it's fine.
It's like Pappy Van Winkle, which retails at like $300, but aftermarket, basically you're not going to get a bottle for less than like $2,000.
Yep. And I do the ABC for Pappy every year, and I won't sell it because I just enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, I totally understand. People. I'm not driven by money. I'm a brewer. Yeah. No brewers are driven by money. So I want to experience it.
I think a part of that market though is the fact that like it's, people that are in California don't have access to, they probably don't have access to Saturday morning marshmallow, right? Like, so they're willing to trade online or, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. My brother at one point actually, West of Letter in 12, which I'm, anybody that knows about beer knows that you can't get that here because it's overseas. And he actually got somebody to smuggle some in, and I actually got to try it, which was pretty cool. But so it's just like, it's that level, like beer is that important, to people to try these new and interesting things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people, really cool. A lot of people we've networked with on Instagram and Facebook, they're all super willing, like I said, to like send you some stuff. Like if there's some stuff you can't get or some stuff they can't get, like trades are a huge thing. It's like, hey man, like let's show me what you got. Open up your beer fridge. I'll show you mine. Mm-hmm. And like some guys up in North Dakota, I think North Dakota is where Drecker Brewing is. They're one of the ones that create these like ridiculous, fruit packed full of fruit smoothie, sour IPA, whatever, like these most ridiculous looking beers. And they don't distribute anywhere outside of, I don't think it goes further than Pennsylvania, maybe. I can't remember, but anyways, these guys have offered to like send us some for trades, but it's so hard as a consumer to ship beer. Mm-hmm. It's technically not legal. Mm-hmm. You have to go through all these loopholes to send stuff out, and it costs a bunch of money to send a package that's that heavy.
Yep.
So I wish that was like some regulations loosened up. I think the COVID thing, obviously it was a terrible thing for businesses and for people alike, but like one of the cool things, one of the benefits is that to go beers became a thing, or I think delivery, I guess breweries maybe are allowed to deliver now.
There's a couple, we did it for a while. It works for some breweries too, just in terms of how much they did.
Yeah, exactly. So there's one thing I wanted to ask about. So like I said, I visited the Pilot House in Virginia Beach this past weekend, and I noticed a few oak barrels, in the facility with the R.D. Wilhelm Reverend Spirits logo on there. And the only reason I'm super interested in that is because I worked at an agency where the agency designed their branding.
Oh yeah.
And
for Carl.
For Carl and Eric.
Yeah.
And so I instantly just like, oh my gosh, that's super cool. So I went and asked the guy at the bar, and he wasn't exactly sure what was in there. So I wanted to ask you about it. If you can't tell us, because obviously I know.
No, it's fine. Actually, that beer already came out. I just have the barrel still in there. That was Claris. So I made do you know what a hot toddy is? It's like a bourbon lemonade like drink with cinnamon. Yeah. So I made my tasting room manager Clint. It's one of his favorite beer styles. So I wanted to make a beer, or is one of his favorite drink styles. So I wanted to make a beer that tastes like a hot toddy. So that came out. But Carl's that distillery is like 4 blocks away from my Norfolk facility. So
yeah,
I legit actually just reached out to him again to get more barrels from him for a project I have going for next December. So usually I age everything for about a year in barrels, typically.
Wow.
Sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes a little bit less, depending on what I'm trying to make through it. So, but if you were there, there was some Rappahannock cellars, some red wine barrels, and I'm making a beer. There's a German style drink. It's called Glühwein. It's wine with brandy. And I'm making, it comes out Black Friday, a Glühwein style beer. But at the Pilot House, I have a bunch of barrels. We're starting to mess with Brett a little bit. So Brett of Mices. And so we just packaged a bunch, but I just filled farmhouse table style Brett beer, and that went to barrels. So that'll sit in there until it's kind of ready. So yeah.
I'm not familiar with that. Are you familiar with that, Reese?
No. With what?
No.
With Brett
beer?
Oh, Brett. No. Yeah. So Brett is like it's a funk. It's really not souring. But like, it's nice and funky. I'm trying to think of like commercial styles. Sierra Nevada has some Brett beers. Virginia Beer Company, who's in Williamsburg, they have some Brett beers. So it's has a little bit of kind of like funk character to it. It actually eats up sugars just like your typical brewer's yeast. So it'll sit in there for a while. And for us, the way we're doing it is we'll make a base style beer. We'll throw it into barrels with some Brett, and then it'll go ahead and chew it all down. So they're typically super dry, and you get like different types of flavors. So we just bottled one, and that will have like kind of like some farmhousey hay kind of qualities to it because it has some saison with it as well. Yeah. So
nice.
Yeah.
Would it be labeled as a Brett beer then?
Yeah. So
okay.
The first two will be Brett saison, and the other one's a Brett saison with peaches. And then I have a bunch of others going. So that's my newest like fun project. Me and my team have never messed with Brett. We've never messed with any of the like bugs, as they would say, for brewing. So I just filled last year a beer that'll sit around for probably like 2 to 3 years before it's ready. And then my lead brewer wants to make an Oud Bruin, and that's going to sit around for like 2 years. So awesome. I try to include my staff in trying to make as many things as possible because I don't want to take all the fun. So Jared, my lead brewer, is an amazing guy. And I was like, hey, dude, I got you 2 bourbon barrels, and you're going to make whatever Oud Bruin you want. Do it up. So he just brewed that. He just brewed the first part of it today. And it'll go into barrels probably in like 2 weeks. And then we'll maybe see it in like 2 years. So.
Oh,
that's insane, man.
Yeah.
We got to keep our eyes out. And AJ, you got to pick up that Brett and save
All right,
me.
hold on.
I'm
going to set a calendar reminder for 2 years from now.
Now the Brett beer will come out hopefully before the end of the year. So we're bottle conditioning them as we speak. So
that's awesome.
Sweet. Okay. That's really cool. Well, you kind of answered our last question, which was what is on the horizon for Smartmouth. But I just like on a personal note, have you guys ever done like a barley wine or, a quad or anything like that?
So barley wine, no. And one of the reasons was our president hates barley wines. So I try to he doesn't like them. And this is prior to the Pilot House. So it's a big brewery. It's a big brew house. So if I'm going to make something, it'd be a lot. Well, the pilot house is a lot smaller, so I can kind of mess around with things. So we're actually going to be making a barley wine in the next 2 or 3 months to go into some barrels. And then I made a quad. It was actually my third beer I made at the pilot house.
Nice.
Because I love quads.
Yeah, me too.
So we didn't make it last year. Last year I made a huge bock instead. So I usually make something around this time, some big beefy thing that I kind of enjoy that you and I would enjoy. But to be honest, they're not sexy beers. They kind of sit around for a little bit, and I'm okay with that. So I want to drink those for a while. So I have crowlers of, I think, both of them down in the fridge, and they'll last for a while being that big in ABV. So
yeah, my wife and I will get one and just kind of hold on to it for a special day, and then when we're feeling right, we'll pop it out, and all you really need is just one. And so
oh yeah. No, it's awesome. It's my fridge downstairs, I have tons of big imperial stouts. The same exact reason. When I crack this open, it's probably all I'm drinking that night. So probably sit outside, listen to music, drink whatever that is, and be completely fine. So
good vibes. That's awesome. Well, I think that's, bringing us to a close. AJ, do you got anything else?
No, I'm just glad you came on, man. It's really cool to talk to somebody local. It's got this kind of experience, and like I said when we were communicating with you before the show, it's just Reese and I both are just all about educating ourselves and learning more about brewing. Maybe we'll experiment a little bit on our own again one day in the future, but
definitely
until then, learning from people who are in it and do it every single day. It's really cool, and I know our audience is going to be excited to hear about that as well. So thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. So for the audience, if you are local to Hampton Roads or just passing through, make sure to check out Smartmouth at either their Norfolk or Virginia Beach location. If you want to learn more about Smartmouth and see what they're pouring, head to smartmouthbrewing.com or check them out on Instagram and Twitter at their handle @SmartmouthBeer. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, man. Thank you all for checking this episode out. And again, make sure you check out Smartmouth if you're nearby. And thanks again, Jimmy, for coming on. And hopefully we'll keep this conversation going. And I'll definitely be seeing you at either Norfolk or Virginia Beach sometime soon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jimmy.
All right. See you, everyone.
See you.